Welcome to Luvbites. Luvbites. By Dr. Tara, your destination for sexual wellness and mindful relationship advice. Hope you're having an orgasmic day.
How amazing would it be if you don't have to hold your vibrator? Let me introduce you to Eva by Dame, hands-free vibrator. Eva is a hands-free, waterproof couples vibrator that gives you clitoral stimulation during penetrative sex. You're gonna feel so good while Eva stays out of the way so you can focus on the moment. Use the link in this episode's description to the product page and use my discount code dr.tara for 10% off. Have an orgasmic time. Hey loves, I have a question for you. Don't you just love pleasure? Today, I have a really exciting guest. She is the founder of a sex-positive Instagram community called Slutty Girl Problems. She is also a very successful pleasure and intimacy coach, Lorrae Jo. Hi, Lorrae.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
I am thrilled to learn from you. So we are particularly talking about a topic today that I feel is often misunderstood by the mass and is often being stereotyped by the mass. So I'm going to kind of open up this conversation for you to share your experiences and knowledge when it comes to open relationships and polyamorous relationships.
So exciting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of misconceptions about polyamory and open relationships. I've even had people on my Instagram say like, oh, isn't it the same thing as cheating? I'm like, no.
I get that a lot. Yeah. People saying like, isn't that just cheating? Or that just sounds ridiculous. Like that wouldn't work. Or that sounds
or
selfish.
Totally. Like, oh, you're having your cake and eating it too. And I'm like, well, I don't quite see the problem with that one.
Yeah. So, how did you start with, open relationships? Or, let's first talk about the difference between an open relationship and a polyamorous relationship.
Absolutely. So most people are familiar with monogamy, where you are sexually and emotionally tied to one person. And then an open relationship is really an umbrella term for any type of relationship where either sexually, intimately, emotionally, you're exploring connections with other people. So that might be in threesomes, that might be swinging, that might be a couple swap, or it might be more of two people dating the same person or one person dating another person. But it's mostly revolving around sexuality and can include polyamory, but polyamory is more about having multiple romantic relationships at the same time, more loving relationships where there's multiple levels of commitment. So that's when you get into like the sharing of Google calendars to coordinate date nights and who's coming to the holidays and meeting multiple people's emotional needs and coordinating a lot of that communication. And these ideas of that it is selfish or cheating really miss the mark in terms of how much consent and communication is actually involved. That really behind the scenes, there's a lot of boundary setting, a lot of ongoing communication on what people are comfortable with, what they're not, and affirming your partner to make sure that they're comfortable every step of the way, to make sure that you're still spending that quality time together. And in regards to cheating, most of all, that you're being open and honest and honoring the boundaries that you set.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, it's anti-cheating.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think that cheating is just the act of sleeping with somebody else. But what cheating actually is the breach of consent. And
Right.
when you're in a monogamous relationship, that breach of consent is around sleeping with somebody else, but you could still be cheating in an open relationship. Let's say that you have like a rule with a partner or a boundary where you only want them to sleep with other people using condoms, and then they don't use a condom with a partner. That's a boundary violation that some would even say is akin to cheating because you're breaking the rules of that commitment.
Like a foul play.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So I have personally witnessed very loving polyamorous relationships. And to me, I do think that it's completely possible. I've heard people told me that is just impossible. It's not in human nature to be able to share. What do you think about that?
Well, in regards to human nature, I think that not only in modern day are we proving that to not be true with how many polyamorous couples there are that are really enjoying it and in love, but also historically, and when you look at other cultures, the book Sex at Dawn was a really eye-opening experience for me, talking about early human civilizations that were much more polyamorous and how monogamy really began with the advent of agriculture, and passing down property from one generation to another by establishing kin relationships. So it's really interesting to look back at historical humans and even our closest ancestors and primates to see that much of the animal world, including primates, are actually much more polyamorous and open than even we are. We tend to lean more on the monogamous spectrum. And I hear a lot of, well, polyamorous relationships don't always work out, so that must mean that it must not work. But tons of monogamous relationships don't work out.
Oh yeah, don't
We
get
don't
me
blame it
started
on monogamy.
on the statistics
Exactly.
of breakups and divorce.
Absolutely. I mean, we go through many people go through many monogamous relationships one after another until they get married and then even go on to get divorced. And we don't say monogamy is the problem, even if the reason for the breakups and the divorce is looking around and desiring other partners. Something
Yes.
that was always really satisfying for me in poly was it actually helped to calm my fears about my partner leaving, because in a monogamous relationship, I was like, well, what if they find someone that does this other thing that I don't like or
Right.
fulfills their needs in these other ways that I can't, then they're going to leave. And then in poly, I was like, oh, that's awesome that you found the girl that loves to go rock climbing and snowboarding and skiing, because I don't do any of that. So go have that adventure and you can still have me too. We don't have to end this relationship just because you found someone else to love and enjoy another experience with.
Interesting. Yeah. And I actually did some research internet research, and I found that one of the questions that's like most often searched is, does polyamory lead to divorce? Which is so interesting that it was often searched for. One
Yeah. So
statistics that I find really important is that polyamory is more common than you would think. Because I think people in general might feel like, oh, I don't know a single person that's in that kind of relationship. But then the data suggests otherwise, right? But I mean, we take data with caution, but still, data shows about 4% of Americans engage in some type of polyamory relationships. Um,
yeah. And I definitely find that to be true in my own experience as well, that when you think about people that are openly out as polyamorous or in open relationships, it's a much smaller percentage, so it doesn't seem very visible because we're not talking about it a lot. But when you
oh, that's
actually start
true.
to chat with your friends, you'll find so many people that were like, yeah, me and my girlfriend opened up for a couple months just so that they could explore their bisexuality, or because we met this person that was really cool and we both wanted to date them. Or I have friends that are like, let's try it while we're separated by time and distance in different states. Or I really just met someone that's lighting up my spark. Can I pursue this? And these are still people that generally consider themselves monogamous, but have explored polyamory and openness under different situations, relationships, and scenarios, and found that it worked for them for a time.
Yeah. Would you say, based on your personal opinion, and I mean personal experience, is it a lot more work? Because that seems to be the narrative of people that are afraid of it or apprehensive of it. Is like, that just sounds too much work, or like, that just sounds too messy.
I think it really depends what you consider the work. For somebody like me who has a lot of desire to explore sexuality and expand my sense of love and connection, it's work that I'm happy and eager to do because the benefit and the payout is so much. And then I find on the flip side of that, that the more that I'm in a monogamous relationship, it actually becomes more work to be in monogamy because we're trying to add all of these new things and thrills and excitements and experiences to keep that connection alive, rather than saying, well, why don't we open up and have those kinds of adventures together? So the work that goes into polyamory or open of that boundary setting and communication, to me, is really worth it. But to other people, it might not be. I think it kind of comes back to, what is your drive and desire to even
Yeah.
lean that way in the first place? But something common that I hear is, oh, well, I'm just too jealous of a
Right.
person to
Yes.
navigate that. And I'm also a really jealous person, or
Uh-huh.
I used to think of myself as a jealous person. And then reframing that, that's just another emotion, just like anger or fear
Yeah.
or sadness or happiness, and that I can choose and find strategies to move through that jealousy and to get the validation and comfort and affirmation and security in the relationship that I need to calm that feeling, that doesn't have to be the barrier to the exploration.
That is an amazing point. So before you got here in this very comfortable space for you, what was it like when you started exploring this?
Yeah. So my first relationship that was open and poly, we had started off in a little bit of a free love dating situation where we were going out to concerts a lot, and we were just feeling really free to make out with whoever, hook up with whoever, and then decided to nurture our individual relationship and be monogamous for a time. And then as we started to go on and had a few years in the relationship, I had found a spark that really lit me up, and connect it with my current partner, or my partner at the time, to say, I really want to explore this and pursue this. I want to go on a date and see what that's like. And we started to just navigate it from the ground up, reading the books, reading materials online, and really talking through it every step of the way as my feelings for this new person started to evolve, figuring out what their boundaries were about me sleeping over, about that person coming around and being integrated into our friend group in life, until it actually became like a full blown relationship. I ended up dating this second person for 2 years, and they came to family
Wow.
holidays and events, and were really integrated into the friend group. And amidst that, my partner, my first partner, taking a look at what their needs and desires were, not just within our connection. So needing date nights and communication and affection and continued investment in our partnership, but how did they want to date? They knew right off the bat that they didn't want another girlfriend. They were like, that is too much work for me. But they
Yeah.
wanted to go out and date and have fun and meet people and have that freedom to hook up if they wanted to.
Right.
And that to us was equality, not necessarily that we each needed a separate romantic partner,
Right.
because we were still each getting our needs met. Our needs were just different.
Yeah, it's a subjective needs, right?
Absolutely.
As long as it's
Yeah.
kind of like equal in your perception, equal in ratio, like rather than
Yeah.
exact same thing. Like,
Exactly.
oh,
Because I
Lorraine
had
is gonna
heard,
have two partners, I'm gonna have two partners. Like it's not
yeah,
like that. I want people to know that it's not strict. It's the opposite.
absolutely.
It's very fluid in terms of expectations and boundary dynamics and renegotiating our needs, desires, and moving forward, right? So it's like max
Yeah.
communication.
Absolutely. It's really like creating a relationship that's designed by you instead of fitting into a standard definition. And at the beginning of us opening up in this way, I got accused a lot socially, of
Oh.
being like selfish, that I had two partners and
I've
that my
heard
partner
that. I've
didn't.
heard that
And
narrative about people.
yeah. And my partner was like, but I don't want them. One's enough. What he wanted was to be able to explore another aspect of his sexuality, not the romantic piece. And that alone is, if both people getting their needs met in different ways, is super valid, even if they don't look exactly the same.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's certain characteristics in a human needed to be able to navigate or be in a polyamorous relationship? Because I
Yeah,
feel like
absolutely.
there must be certain skills that poly people are really good at, and certain like human, like natural personality type that's more towards giving and open-mindedness. What do you think? I know that studies do suggest certain personality types. So like one of them would be secure attachment style in order to be in a successful open relationship or polyamorous relationship. Because if you do have, pretty severe insecure attachment styles, any of the styles, it's adding like a lot more difficulty into negotiating this type of relationship. And the second one that I read in a study was people that are in polyamorous relationships actually score really low on narcissism.
Wow.
So you really can't be a narcissistic person to be in a polyamorous relationship when the stereotype is actually, oh, it just sounds like they're narcissistic people that just wants attention all the time. I'm like, no, in fact,
Yeah.
it's the opposite.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
What do you think are some characteristics of people that would
Yeah.
be maybe a more chance of being more successful in polyamorous relationships?
Totally. So I'm really interested to hear about the secure attachment, because while I was in my first open relationship, and even until very recently, I've been very anxious attached. And me exploring polyamory and navigating that has helped me to come to secure attachments, because I'm aligning and connecting with partners that aren't avoidant partners. So I used to be stuck in the anxious avoidant trap in monogamy, where like I was always chasing and then the other person was pulling away. And then meeting with people that were more open and poly and that had those really good communication skills, for me actually started to give me that security and helped me to develop a secure attachment, because I was getting that type of consistent communication and feedback that I needed from secure partners, rather than being caught in the anxious avoidant trap. So for me, it ended up being healing, but I was also doing this all in combination of my own therapy and coaching and reading and self-development to kind of overcome that at the same time. I love the idea of folks into poly being low on narcissism. And I also totally agree, because it takes so much to go into it. If you're doing poly ethically, that it really does take a lot. Dr. Jana Vranglova has some really interesting research about this as well, and laid out some traits that are really important for opening and navigating open relationships. And I know that novelty seeking, openness, adventure, and grounded, healthy communication skills are really high up there to be able to navigate this successfully. And I know for myself personally, novelty seeking and openness are just high on my value system in general and my personality. So it definitely fits.
Interesting. So in this particular novelty seeking concept, is it specifically novelty seeking in the sexual setting, or is it like just someone who loves novelty?
For me personally, it's just novelty in general. I
Like
love novelty
you'll
in
try
everything in my
all
life.
brand new ice cream flavors.
Oh yeah.
You'll go
I
to
want to see
places that
every
people are like,
city.
this is not a safe place to go.
Oh, exactly. Like I want the risk, I want the adrenaline, I want the adventure. And I even just do that in love and not just in sex. Like just I literally my most recent partner, I traveled out to meet an old flame from 10 years ago on a whim in Colorado, got a ticket to go visit, fell in love, and he got a ticket back. So we're just like following that
Wow.
heart to such like this big open exciting adventure experience, and kind of letting that lead the way and lead my heart.
I love that. You just seem like you love love.
I do. I do. And I feel like that's a piece of poly as well. There's the idea of new relationship energy and that initial spark when you're falling in love with someone, and capturing that kind of essence of that excitement and getting to feel that. I feel like with people, something that I've loved in polyamory is that I get to have all of these different experiences. Maybe the partner that loves to have the intellectual conversations over sushi sushi, or the partner that wants to go like off-roading and ATVing, or the partner that wants to like lay in a hammock under the stars. And like you get to experience it all with all these different people that not everyone can fill, or not one person can fill every role.
Oh, that's so true. And I think that, Esther Perel talks a lot about how nowadays we expect our partner to be everything. The
Yeah.
works that used to be of the entire village. I think that's what she said, which is almost like an unrealistic expectation of one person. So I have a question for you. And this is, I'm playing devil's advocate. Um, so it sounds like a great idea right now. Was there ever a time where you experienced a difficulty or like extreme jealousy or ways, I guess, things that were like not reconcilable?
That's so interesting. I think that in my long-term poly relationship, there definitely came a point where both partners realized that poly wasn't for them.
Mhm.
I don't think that there was like a moment of extreme jealousy that was like a boundary that had been crossed that was too big to bear. We were all really fantastic at honoring those boundaries. But I know that both of them ultimately decided that monogamy was better suited for them. And then in other poly relationships that I've had, we've just realized that regardless of poly, we're both still poly. We just weren't a right match. And then that's totally fine too. Um, I
And we'll
have
both go
heard.
poly elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're just not meant to be a fit, and that's totally fine. I've definitely heard of other couples where a boundary has been breached, and just like in cheating, that can be a really hard thing to overcome because it's a boundary and trust violation, and then that trust piece needs to be rebuilt. But personally, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah, that does sound difficult, but just like any monogamous relationships, really. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
breaching of boundaries, betrayal,
Yeah.
expectancy violations. I
Yeah.
mean,
And I
just like
think one of
any
the
relationship.
Totally. And I think one of the beautiful things about poly is almost this open door policy of if you have a desire that you want to explore, just tell me. Right now, the relationship that I'm in, we are currently monogamous because he had been in open relationships before and wants to again in the future, but we want it to have like this time to explore ourselves in a secure way before going down that road, which I was down for. And I think, crap, where was I going with this thought?
It's like you can open and close, open and close.
Yes, you can. Like it's always open to be played around with and explored in all of these different ways, and that you can really follow your heart and navigate it in any way that you want to make sure that both partners are secure, that nothing really needs to be final, that you get to set the boundaries as you go. And that's the other thing that I would recommend to people who are interested in opening up is kind of tiptoeing up to that line. You don't need to say that, we're going to start an open relationship and everything and everyone's on the table and whatever you want to do is fine, just use condoms. You can say, you know what, let's just go to the bar and flirt with other people tonight, or let's
Right.
get on an app and see if we meet another couple and then just go out for drinks with no expectations. Or maybe the first time that we have a threesome or do like a couple swap, we're only going to make out and roll around in bed and there's going to be no penetration or genitals at all.
That
Like you
actually
totally get
sounds
to set
really
your
fun.
yeah, like you get to set your own rules and comfort and make it what you want. And that just like how there doesn't have to be like a preset determination of what it looks like, even in the bedroom. Like I think one of the mistakes people make is just like everything's on the table now. And in
Yeah.
my experience, it was this slow tiptoeing up to say, well, what are we comfortable with now? How did that feel? What worked and didn't work? Do you need some reassurance? And giving that love and reassurance along the way.
Yeah, totally. I love that you said that because I do think that there is this stereotype that like all poly people are just all having all kinds of sex all the time.
Mhm.
And when in
Yeah.
fact I love when you said you can just all like cuddle and roll around in bed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it really I remember where I was going with this now. So it really opens the door even to just be able to fantasize and start to put ideas on the table of what is it that we would even want to do and what would be hot to do, even if we're not ready to act on it right now. Like literally this morning, even though my partner and I are technically monogamous right now, it's like, I would love to have a threesome with you. And then we were having sex talking about all the things that we would want to do in a threesome. And it was so hot even though we're not necessarily like ready
Oh,
or
I
eager
love
to do
that.
that right now. So you can play with it so much in fantasy before you even try to explore.
Gosh, and that fantasy part is fun. Just
Absolutely.
creatively
Absolutely.
thinking about what are the possibilities.
Yeah, and in a no pressure environment where you just get to explore the desire of it, and not necessarily have to move on it. And sometimes that piece alone can be so satisfying and exciting. And then who knows, like we might go away and find the person that we're just like, is this the person? Is tonight the
Yeah.
night? And then go for it. And we kind of already know what it is that we want to do and what we would want it to look like.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I have a question for you, and this might seem a little hypothetical because you don't have children. Uh, do you think that polyamorous relationships, based on your, I guess, professional experience and observation, and maybe even in theory, do you think poly would work with people that have children?
So one of my best friends has a lovely daughter, and her husband are polyamorous. And similar to my experience, she dates romantically, and then he dates more physically. And children are wildly adaptable. They've been doing it for a long time when their child was young, and they do wait to introduce any potential partners until it's more of a serious partnership. But just like the idea of mommy and daddy have a lot of friends and friends come and go, and we have people over to the house. It's the same thing with partners, that it's a really good close friend that mommy sees and that sleeps over sometimes and that hangs out around the house. And like kids, they don't feel that they're necessarily like they don't need to know all the details, but they're just like, okay, that makes sense. Like, of course, we all have friends and
Yeah.
friends that are of different importance and intimacy in our lives. So I think it absolutely works. And I think in many ways, even shows examples to children of how to navigate different communication dynamics. And I think it's also different than if you, let's say, have a single parent that has different partners coming in on a
Right.
regular basis, where they're saying, well, am I really ready to introduce somebody into my life and
Right.
my daughter or son's life, and then have them taken away? A little bit different in a poly situation because the child is still seeing that secure partnership that is ongoing, and then these other people are kind of
Yeah.
popping in and out as friends.
Yeah. I feel like in theory, it's probably good for children to observe healthy boundaries and communication and happy
Mm,
parents. Because I
absolutely.
feel like
And
happy
way
parents are so much better than really bitter, like bickering parents that hate each other. Like, okay, let's say
totally.
you're in a monogamous marriage and you hate each other and you consistently bicker and there's a lot of yelling and arguing. I don't think that is healthy at all.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
and it's
absolutely
typically some
agree.
of these people that question like polyamorous relationships and like, oh, that's just a bad example for children.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that it's really important to have those healthy communication skills and boundaries. And also, way back in the day, there used to be this idea of like a village raising a child, and like the hippie communities where there would be multiple adults in a household and many children. And you get the benefits of co parents and several groups of responsible adults that are sharing responsibilities and caretaking. So you'll hear about polycules, which are like groups of poly people that are all dating one another, and many of whom have children and raise the household like one unit and family, which I just think is really beautiful and a great and economical way to divide
True.
resources and childcare and emotional support and household duties.
What do you say to people that say things like, well, that just sounds like a cult?
Well, I think that the definition of a cult has like a leader and like some kind of philosophy that is like a almost a pseudo spiritual philosophy. So I would put it more akin to like a close knit community,
Mhm.
almost like a family that's not related by blood, because there really is no leader. It's a non hierarchical group of consenting humans that just bond and love each other.
I love that you said hierarchical. I've heard before, but I don't know how truthful this is, that some polyamorous relationship has a hierarchy, like has a
Mhm.
leader in the relationship versus some are non-hierarchical. Is that something that you've heard of?
Yeah, so usually in a hierarchical relationship, like let's say that the first people that had gotten together, like partner one and two, that's a primary partner. And then whoever one of them dates becomes the secondary partner. So then the secondary partner is of lesser importance than the primary partner. In my experience, we went pretty non hierarchical. I lived with my first partner. But if my second partner was having a bad day, that would take priority for me. If my first partner was having a bad day, that would take priority for me. There wasn't somebody that had veto power over what I did or that would get priority of plans. Everything was done really egalitarian and
Yeah.
to try to respect everyone involved. Some people are like, you know what, I have my husband and my wife, and then I have my girlfriend, and my girlfriend's needs are important but come secondary. And if everybody agrees to that and that's how they want to navigate that relationship, that works too. But it would be with the consent of everyone involved. I think often when you get into these bigger groups, it becomes a little bit less hierarchical because there's just so many different experiences to navigate that people need to be more on equal ground. But I haven't personally done this, but for a while I was very interested in just being a secondary partner to another couple because I was like, I don't want the responsibility of a deep, emotional, committed relationship. I just want to have fun and go on dates and not have to be like super involved with the
Yeah.
day to day emotions. And that I was totally cool with being a secondary partner and having it be more casual. So, being the secondary partner or a more casual partner isn't necessarily that your needs aren't being met or that you feel
Right.
disrespected or that you're wishing that you were the primary. There's definitely times where I'm like, I don't have the emotional bandwidth right now for a full relationship. Just
Yeah.
I want to enjoy some sushi.
Yeah, there's full on communication and
Yes.
expectations are known.
Yes, absolutely. And I think going into it with that openness and transparency for everyone involved and what the expectations are on both sides, and being really honest with yourself about what
Yeah.
you want and need in a relationship, not trying to say that you want something in hopes that someone will like you
Right.
or in hopes that they'll stick around is so important so that you can actually get your needs met and be able to meet someone else's.
Yeah. Talking about honesty. So I've read research that talked about the process of coming out as poly, right? As a communicative act. Because obviously, once you start your poly journey, your existing network, right? Your friends, your family don't know. And some people choose to not share or disclose their poly status. Have you shared your poly status? I assume yes, because you're on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, so I was very open about it. Pretty much from the start,
Mhm.
as part of my personal life, my public life, my business life, and also in my friendships and family. It was really important for me to be open about that. My first partner that I explored with was happy for our friends to know. It took a little bit for him to navigate how do I want to express this, that I
Right.
am getting my needs met as well because of the optics of it.
Yeah,
There were a
like,
lot of
oh, your
questions.
girlfriend is just out there having sex with other
Yeah,
people, right? So, how did
absolutely.
both of you construct this communication piece?
Yeah, I mean, he was really worried about the public perception of that.
Mhm.
And we just talked a lot about, well, what is it that his needs actually are, and how is he going forward to meet them and explore them, and focusing on that piece of that what he's benefiting from it too, what he's getting out of it, and where his heart is, so that he could feel fully confident stepping into that. And now, since I had an actual romantic partner, I told my family, but my partner never brought it up to his family because he was like, why would I? I'm just sleeping with other women. So like, there's no need for it to get involved on any deeper level. So it was interesting for us to navigate, and even to explain to my family that like I would be having two partners come home for the holidays, and
That's
then
so
being like,
interesting.
what? I'm so shocked. But it was kind of just this thing of, well, they're either both going to come or we're not going to come.
So how was
So
that?
everyone's going to be cool with it. Well, my partners were used to hanging out, and, we would have Halloween parties and
Right.
Friendsgivings and all these other different social events. So they were totally used to it. And then my family had a few questions about, is everyone happy? Is everyone feeling
Right.
safe? Is everyone feeling good about this? Okay, if you're happy, we're happy. And luckily
Oh,
ended up being cool about it, even though I don't think that they fully understood, but that's fine. Not everyone has to understand for your desires and
right.
choices to be valid.
That's so true. And like, no need for deep understanding. Is not like your parents like live in the same home with you and watch you do all
Yeah,
these things. Like, you're an adult and
absolutely.
you're capable of making your own decisions. But as long as it's, not a negative energy in the family, that just sounds wonderful that your family is just kind of like, as long as everyone's happy and safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they still get confused about it. And like, I'm still very close friends with my ex that I was like with for a very long
Right.
time, and we were poly. So they'll see us like going to weddings together and in pictures together, and they'll be like, "Are you guys back together?" And I'm like, "No, just as friends." But yeah, it's really beautiful. I think another great thing about poly in my experience is that you can, because of this openness and communication, at least in my experience, we were able to more consciously uncouple the relationship and work through that with a lot of deep communication tools, so that there wasn't like a big blow up fight and argument. And often with monogamy, it's like you have to cut each other out of your lives
Yeah.
almost
It's like
to
dramatic.
not. Yeah, it tends to be so dramatic. And we were able to maintain a really close friendship and maintain those bonds because we were like, the sexual piece isn't there anymore and the romantic piece isn't there anymore, but there's still this deep friendship piece that we can hold and honor.
That's wonderful. My last question for you is, any advice for people that are considering or are curious and wanted to start exploring poly and open?
Yeah, one piece of advice that I would be cautious around is trying to open up to save a relationship. And it can go
Mm,
in so many ways, and it is not a sure shot. And it really depends on what's going on in the relationship to begin with that's causing that desire for openness. If the
mm.
relationship is fighting and has underlying issues and values and miscommunications that aren't able to be resolved, simply opening it up isn't going to solve those issues. All of those issues are still going to be there. And if you're not able to communicate, like it's only going to be exacerbated once you're adding this new layer that requires a lot of communication. On the flip side, if you have a really secure relationship with great communication, but you're just feeling maybe sexually stagnant and stuck, you're both looking at other folks, you're
Mhm.
wanting sexual adventure, you're wanting more eroticism and romance, that you're not necessarily able to generate that spark with the two of you, but you have that solid communication, then opening up actually can really help. And that you have to take a very close inventory on the exact nuances of your relationship. And if you're opening up to quote unquote save it, what are you trying to save it from? Because just
Right.
having sex or being intimate with other people isn't going to save a relationship that fundamentally isn't working.
I love that. So poly isn't a solution for a shitty relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you weren't right for each other from the first place, don't try to make poly and open a solution and then blame it when it doesn't work.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
Definitely.
I love that advice. Okay, so I'd like to move forward to our game segment for today.
Amazing.
Are you ready?
I'm so excited.
We are going to play 10 Quickies with Dr. Tara. Are you ready, Lorrae?
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, just give me any first reaction. Number 1, swinging.
Ooh, bodies.
Ooh. Number 2, G-spot.
Squirting. I know that doesn't happen all the time, but I recently learned how to squirt and I've been really excited about
Oh
it.
my gosh. Number 3, squirting.
Oh, gosh.
Number 4, choking.
Safety.
Number 5, lube.
Body safe, always.
Yes. Number 6, masochism.
Oh, playful.
Number 7, sex on the beach.
Sandy. Ooh.
Number 8, pegging.
Boundaries.
Number 9, anal.
Lots of lube.
And last but not least, number 10, orgy.
Sex clubs.
Awesome. This was a great conversation. And I have personally learned so much. And I know that the audience is learning so much from you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be on here. And yeah, anyone who is listening can feel free to come check us out at Slutty Girl Problems, at Lorrae Jo. And if you have any questions for me, reach out.
I will be sharing those links in today's show description as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you, Lorrae. And thanks, y'all, for listening. Have an orgasmic day. Do you want to become sexually powerful? If the answer is yes, go to luvbites.co and check out 30 Days to My Best Sexy Self, a Sexual Mindfulness Journal. This ebook will change your life. In this sexual mindfulness journal, I offer the tried and true methods to become more sexually confident. It's for everyone who wants to have the best sex life possible.
Thanks for listening. This was Love Bites.
Love Bites.
By Dr. Tara. Follow Dr. Tara on social media at luvbites.co. Have an orgasmic day.